What's up, my printer peoples? This is episode number 2 in a 3-part video series covering the E3D Volcano Hotend. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install the Volcano into your printer, which happened to be a little bit more complicated than I expected, but with the help of this here handy dandy video, you'll be installing it and printing in no time. Alright, let's get into it. Yeah! First, set the hotend to 250C because we'll be needing to loosen the nozzle and remove the heat break and aluminum heatsink to reuse in the Volcano Assembly. After the nozzle is loose, make sure to turn off the hotend. This is super important because the next step of removing the thermocouple will cause the heater to get dangerously hot. With no temp feedback, the printer will unknowingly heat up the hotend well past a safe temperature. Be careful, you just heated everything up so their parts are going to stay hot for a while. Loosen the heater cartridge, disconnect the Bowden tube, and then pull the E3D from the printhead. Here's a pro tip. Use a small wrench to press the quick connect collar down while pulling up on the Bowden tube. Makes things much easier when trying to disassemble. Now we're going to wrangle the heater cartridge out from the heater block. Now that the V6 is out, we will unscrew the aluminum heatsink from the heat break. Unscrew the heat break from the heater block. If you did not properly remove the filament before disassembly, then you'll have some type of plastic in the heat break, and we'll need to get that removed. Slide the heat break over a screwdriver and then heat it up with a heat gun or hair dryer. As the plastic gets soft, the heat break will slide down, pushing the plastic out where you can grab it and pull it clear. Keep repeating this process until you have cleared the last bits out. You should be able to get the board pretty clean this way. Using the cleaned out heat break and the aluminum heatsink from the V6, we can now assemble the Volcano kit. 4 special long nozzles come with the Volcano, and you can tell them apart by the number of dimples on the flats of the hex. Very smart. 3 dimples means a 1.2mm diameter, 0 dimples means 0.6, 1 dimple means 0.8, and 2 dimples means a 1mm hole in the nozzle. A very clever strategy from the E3D guys. Personally, I've always thought that the saying "go big or go home" applies to just about everything, so I'm going big. I'm putting the biggest 1.2mm nozzle in as I install this. Make sure and thread the nozzle into the heater block on the side that is flat. The other side that has a shoulder machined into it needs to be facing upwards towards the heatsink. That little shoulder provides the necessary clearance for the heater cartridge. Be careful not to thread the nozzle in all the way flush into the heater block. You want to be sure that there's a small gap between it and the nozzle. Thread the heater block in from the other side until it jams up against the nozzle. Bend a sharp 90-degree angle into the heater cartridge wires, being careful not to break them off or cause them to touch each other. Now slide the cartridge into the heater block and then thread the aluminum heatsink onto the heat break. The hardware baggie contains 2 longer screws for tightening the cartridge, a shorter screw and washer for holding the thermistor or thermocouple in my case, and the ferrules are for connecting the thermistor to the wiring harness. Ferrules are used because a solder joint is more likely to fail due to vibrations. The third baggie contains the thermistor components. The small blue tube is a high-temp fiberglass sleeve that insulates the thermistor legs. This thermistor that E3D chose is good up to 300C, but I wanted to keep the ability to print above 300 for specialty filaments, so I stayed with my thermocouple. And the large black tube is just regular heat shrink. Hand tighten the 2 longer screws, then hold the heater cartridge flush with the bottom. Now tighten the screws. Not all printers are the same, but with my Ultimaker, the provided length of heater cartridge wire was not long enough to reach the main board, so I had to extend the wires a tad. Take the 2 ends of the heater cartridge wire and cut a short length of the insulation off. Now tin the ends and prepare them to be soldered into an XT60 connector. Also tin the connections on the XT60. cut off any extra length from the tinned ends so that the insulation butts up right against the XT60 connector. Slide some heat shrink over the wires before soldering everything together, and polarity doesn't matter here because the heater cartridge is a simple load resistor. I chose 16 gauge wire to run the rest of the way to the main board, when 10 heavy gauge wire flux helps the solder flow. Again, polarity does not really matter, but because I had black and red wires, I thought it proper to match the color up with the polarity designation on the XT60 connectors. Now we just rinse and repeat. Go through the same process again for the wire ends that will be going into the terminal blocks on the printer board. I believe that whenever putting wires into terminal blocks, you get a much more reliable connection if you tin the ends, so that's what I did. The final result is a wiring harness that reaches from the printhead all the way back to the main board, and it has a connection so I can easily replace or change out the heater cartridge. Looking at the existing wiring harness for the printhead, we see 3 plugs. The 2 plugs that are orange, green, brown, and red, black, yellow connect to the extruder thermocouple amp chips. Purple and blue wires power the cooling fans. We keep everything except for the stock heater cartridge. It's got to go! Putting the Volcano back into the printhead, I orient the heater block so it is parallel with the Y-axis. This helps route all the wires out of the way. Once the Volcano is mounted, I use the given washer and screw to fasten the thermocouple into place. Be careful not to over-tighten this one. Now route the new heater cartridge wires to the main board following the stock heater wires. I flip over the Ultimaker to gain access to the belly of the beast. Remove the cooling fans from the main board in order to get at the terminal blocks. My heated bed solid state relay popped out of place, so I clipped it back in. Oops. Remove the stock heater cartridge wires from the terminal block and pull the wires free. Now snake the stock heater cartridge wires out, we're not going to use them anymore. Take the new heater cartridge wires that have already been routed and fasten them into the same terminal block as the stock wires came out of. Again, polarity does not matter, so either wire can go into either side of the terminal block. After everything is plugged in, double check to make sure the wires are in their proper location before powering on the printer. After turning on the printer, check to make sure the hot end is reporting the correct ambient room temperature. If all that is working, then re-zero the Z height of the new taller hot end and you are done! I used a normal piece of printer paper, folding it over twice to allow for about 0.2 millimeters of clearance between the nozzle and the heated bed. I was able to make some prints at this point, but to really get the most out of the Volcano, you'll have to play with the slicer and firmware settings, which, lucky for you, I go over in video number 3, so make sure and watch that one. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something today. If you missed the first video of this series, go ahead and give that a click because I talked through why I think the Volcano is such a great hot end. Also, if you're on your own personal journey of installing a Volcano, make sure and click the third video because I show you how to set up your slicer and your firmware settings to get the most out of your hot end. Please click either the like or dislike button down below because that helps me understand what kind of content you'll like. If you don't really like this stuff but you like more of the filament reviews, I need to know that so I can provide that to you guys because y'all are helping me out by watching my videos and I want to entertain you guys and keep you clicking on that stuff. So let me know, click the like button, click the dislike button, leave your comments down below. I love chatting with y'all, hearing how things are going. A bunch of people have contacted me with projects and I've been able to help them out. Fun stuff. I love the community. It's great. So let's keep that going. Thanks guys and I'll see you next time. If you like it, click the dislike button if you don't like it and it helps me figure out why I rub my nose. I don't know. Rambler, you're rambling. The rambler man. Stop rambling. No one's acting a rambler. Unless you're a Jeep Rambler. And then that's a scrambler. Scrambler? Jeep Scrambler?